You sniffing the mic again?
I actually am sniffing it this time. It smells weird.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Goblins live show. We have an awesome show lined up for you today, including Yamaha and their partnership with Toyota in developing a hydrogen-powered V8, and whether or not a car can ever be as fun as a motorcycle. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's roll the intro. I was about to say let's get into it, like in the like in the vlogs.
Had a notification.
It's good.
It's working.
All right. So, before we start the show, I would like to address the current state of affairs in Ukraine. I don't want to talk about this too much, as I'm sure everyone's heard plenty about it on the news today. But I have written a few words about perhaps the scariest time we have seen in Europe for about 80 years. And I actually had planned to address this today before anything even started. Just to say that we hope that the political issues between Ukraine, Belarus and Russia could be resolved peacefully. However, that is obviously no longer an option. I have friends in the UK military which I have reached out to today just to find out if they're safe and whether or not they've been ordered to bolster NATO on the Eastern Front. Luckily, no such orders have been given to any of my friends as of yet, but it is a real concern how far and wide this conflict will extend. I wish our government in Britain had taken a tougher and more direct stance in Ukraine, especially after the several poisoning attacks we had in British towns over recent years, which the Russian government never answered for. We know clearly that the Russian government cannot be trusted to uphold global peace, and it is such a shame considering our shared history, struggle and sacrifice during the first half of the 20th century. We know the Russian people do not want conflict, and we in the UK are certainly not anti-Russian. We are anti-Vladimir Putin and the maniacs in power that are violently putting down protests and arresting anyone who tries to speak up against the Russian government. So everyone knows that this conflict is only happening because of Putin and his associates who are struggling to keep hold of their power in Russia. They are so desperate to stay in power that they are willing to sacrifice thousands of Slavic lives to satisfy their egos. Vladimir Putin's speech this morning regarding immediate responses to any interference from other countries in Ukraine is proof that he is willing to do whatever it takes to protect his own interests and not that of the Russian people or that of humanity as a whole. So to the people of Ukraine watching this show, your struggle is heartfelt across the UK and the world. Your sacrifice will determine the security and future of Europe. Our thoughts go out to any and all Ukrainians, Russians and Belarusians that are involved in the Eastern conflict and their families that live and work in the UK and the rest of Europe. I am sorry that we didn't do more in the beginning to stop this from ever happening, and I hope my feelings are shared across the UK and Europe, and that we can all find a way to bring peace back to the region as quickly as possible. So those are the words that I wrote down today. Was that okay?
Yeah.
Was that heartfelt?
Mm-hmm.
Because I am genuinely worried, and I know that the wife is genuinely worried about what's going on in that part of the world, and it literally all happened this morning. So yeah, quite a scary time to live in Europe anyway, and especially in the eastern part of Europe. So yeah. Anyway, shall we get on with the show today?
Let's do it.
Of course, anyone who wants to put their point of views across, make sure to put them in the chat and we can maybe discuss them later on in the show. But anyway, so Yamaha recently announced a partnership with Toyota to develop a hydrogen-fueled V8 engine. I'll just bring that up here for you guys all to see. So this is on topgear.com.
I didn't know they had a website.
No, I didn't know either, to be honest. But yeah, the RCF's 5-litre 8-cylinder is being prepped as a 440 brake horsepower hydrogen powerhouse. So very, very interesting news to come out from Yamaha this week. It's a small part of a big agreement between Japan's automotive community to explore and expand fuel options for internal combustion engines. So of course everyone knows about the electrification and stuff like that of vehicles across the world for combating emissions and things like that. But yeah, it seems like Yamaha and Toyota. I mean, we know that Toyota has been developing hydrogen engines for a while now, both in hydrogen electric and in hydrogen ICE engines. But it's interesting that Yamaha have now joined them in trying to try and develop this technology, see how far we can get it to go.
But they started working on the hydrogen V8 5 years ago.
Where does it say that?
Third paragraph from the bottom.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, here it is.
So they've been looking at this for a while. Does that mean they did it before Kawasaki started? I can't remember when Kawasaki started doing it.
Yamaha, Kawasaki's kind of entry seems to be recent.
It does,
but we don't know how long they've had these projects kind of in the background for.
Away.
I mean, like Yamaha, for example, apparently started this 5 years ago, and this is interesting, very interesting. So, I mean, because like I said, we know that Toyota have been heavily involved in this kind of development, but it's funny that Yamaha all of a sudden have come out with this. They've been developing this. But having said that, I mean, these companies would have been making preparations and would have been investing in R&D for the time when, we can't use gasoline, we can't use petrol anymore. So it does make sense. Of course, is it Honda that have publicly stated that it's pointless looking at hydrogen?
I don't know, have they?
Yeah, I heard somewhere recently that Honda don't think this idea is any good, and they kind of condemned, well, not condemned, but they kind of like spoke against Yamaha and Toyota for their.
Do you know why?
No, I did try looking for the news article that I read. This was a few weeks ago, perhaps even a couple of months ago, but I couldn't find the article, unfortunately. But I mean, Honda clearly are working on their electric stuff as well, so especially because their cars and what have you are becoming electric also. So yeah, it's very interesting to see what these mad engineers are coming up with.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's interesting they've partnered, for sure. So I'm really struggling to read. I've got my glasses on, so I'm really struggling to focus on what that says. It's a small part of a big agreement between Japan's automotive community to explore and expand fuel options for internal combustion engine. Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
so they're aiming this kind of engine to rival that of a petrol-powered V8. So they are clearly trying to make it as normal as possible, if you like, compared to what we have nowadays. Because obviously, I mean, there's a statement here. Motor is in our company name, and we accordingly have a strong passion for and level of commitment to the internal combustion engine, explains Yamaha boss Yoshiro Hidaka. So clearly they are still investing in ICEs, which is
why they can, they might as well.
It's positive in a way, because obviously they're still trying to explore all the different ways that we could power cars and vehicles in the future. So it's good. It's good. I don't like this whole assumption that electric is the only way forward. I'm not much of a fan. I'm still open to persuasion on other things, on other types of propulsion. So yeah, very, very interesting news coming out from Yamaha and Toyota. Yeah.
Hydrogen engines have an innately friendly feel that makes them easy to use. Even without resorting to electronic driving aid. So they mean cruise control in that sense, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Fun and noisy too. It's said to give off a harmonic, high-frequency exhaust note. I personally want to pursue not just performance, but also a newer law for internal combustion engine that the world has yet to see. Yeah, it's like you said, they're putting quite a lot into keeping it, aren't they? And making it work. Ooh. Oh, I've got a slippery pug here.
Slippery pug.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting news, and I do kind of hope that it comes to something. I mean, obviously, I think we've spoken about Toyota's hydrogen ICE car recently on the live show, where it had some problems like hot spots in the engine and pre-ignition as well, pre-ignition problems. So obviously there are a few kinks that they need to work out, and it might take an entirely different approach to make hydrogen ICEs work. Whether that's in the form of like a rotary engine or something like that. I mean, I've not heard of a hydrogen-powered rotary engine yet. So, but I mean, again, rotary engines, they have their innate problems anyway. But yeah, they might need to take a completely different approach to traditional engine design to make this work. But it's good to see that they're trying at least anyway. And they are investing the money in doing it. There was also another news article. Oh, bugger. I didn't actually read it. I thought it was interesting, and I was meant to read it later on, but I completely forgot about how the UK's hydrogen infrastructure is, like, rubbish. Even compared to, like, America, where they only seem to have hydrogen fuel stations in California, So it doesn't seem like the UK at least is preparing for a hydrogen future at all. I suppose we're waiting to kind of see where this technology goes, aren't we, before we invest fully.
Yeah, but there's also let everybody else make the mistakes of doing it wrong and getting it wrong, and then come out the fine-tuned, and then we'll go, oh, okay, well, we'll take the blueprint for that, thanks very much. And then we'll come up with something else. That could be the way that they're going to go. I mean,
it seems like, of course, these kinds of engines, this kind of development is going to be geared towards enthusiasts, not normal people. Normal people are going to be having electric cars for the most part. Enthusiasts might decide to pay for a car like this or a bike that has some kind of hydrogen combustion engine. But it's... Because again, as well, I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago in the live show about the problems with hydrogen and how it's less efficient. Delivering hydrogen to the tank of a car or a motorcycle is less efficient than just charging it. If you just had a battery or something like that, you can charge it directly off the grid, and it gets its power directly from the power stations or directly from wind turbines or directly from hydroelectric dams or whatever. It comes directly from the source of electricity. Whereas with hydrogen, you need to extract it, you need to then compress it, deliver it, and then put it in your car. So there's a lot more steps, a lot more processes involved in using hydrogen as a future fuel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I think it probably has more application in things like trucks and lorries, where they're traveling long distances, because obviously you don't want a trucker having to stop halfway through their hauling journey just to charge up the batteries in their truck.
Imagine how long that would take. How many batteries they probably have.
Right, exactly. And I think there are well, obviously Tesla kind of a few years ago teased their electric trucks, didn't they? But hydrogen makes more sense for a truck for sure, because you can just load it up with a load of compressed or uncompressed hydrogen. Well, when I say compressed, I mean liquid hydrogen. You could compress it and then liquefy it, put it into a tank of some kind, and then they can go on massive journeys like they do at the moment. The truck drivers, they don't stop for fuel per se. They stop more just to rest. But the trucks themselves can take them hundreds and hundreds of miles in a single day.
Yeah, they have to stop, don't they?
Yeah, at least in the UK they do anyway.
They get tracked and have to stop.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, interesting development, but we'll have to wait and see where all this R&D is actually going to end up going, because it might not even end up in the hands of us consumers or even enthusiasts if this is an engine that is going to be designed for some kind of haulage, whether that be trains or whether that be lorries, trucks, what have you.
Could it end up in like racing cars and stuff? Or is that unlikely?
It could do. I mean, well, that's what Toyota teased, wasn't it? It was like a little hot hatchback. I think it was like a Toyota Yaris that was powered by a hydrogen engine, ICE engine. So yeah, we don't know where this is going to go, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Shall we move on to the next topic of today's video?
Yes.
Okay. So, for those of you that are fans of Top Gear,
the original,
Top Gear, the original show of the trio, there was an episode they did. Gosh, this must have been 15 years ago now, about an aerial atom. It was probably the first generation aerial atom, I imagine, that they were reviewing.
It's the only one I've ever known, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think there have been more iterations of this car, but yeah, when they did this review, they famously put it up against a motorcycle. And so what I'm going to do, hopefully this won't get any copyright strikes or what have you on the show, but I want to show you the Top Gear clip. It's on YouTube already, and yeah, we'll just kind of see. Jeremy Clarkson says something very, very interesting at the end, and it's something that we would like to discuss. So what we'll do, we'll move you all over to this secondary screen here. All right. Let's have a look and see what comes of this Top Gear review.
But what about two wheels? Is it possible that the Atom could be faster round our track than a motorbike? Well, to find out, we've lined it up against the Honda CBR 600RR. Off the line, the bike is a tiny bit faster, but under braking for the first corner, the Atom slid past, and then it really was a case of goodbye, Mr. Bond. Through the bend, the bike never stood a chance, and even down the long back straight up to 120 miles an hour, it couldn't keep up. By the time we crossed the line, the gap had widened to a massive 4 seconds. Over the years, I've flown F-15 fighters and done power slides in airboats and scrubbed the desert from helicopter gunships, but for sheer excitement,
It's really good.
this thing is off the scale. Even so, there will still be those who say that no car, no matter how fast it is, can ever be as exciting as a big bike.
Oh, please! I mean, I don't have to wear a helmet in here, which means my epiglottis is full of bees. And there's so much wildlife in my hair, you could film an episode of Badger Watch in there. And what's more, this is the engine air intake. It's sucking air in here. And I can feel it as a pressure difference in my ear.
All right, you guys get the idea. So he begs the question in that clip, in that Top Gear clip, how a car can ever be as fun as a big bike. Now, the very first thing I will say about that clip is, why do they put an aerial atom up against a CBR 600RR? They should have put it up against like a Fireblade or an R1 or something, had a bit more bite to it, a bit more punch than a 600cc Super Sport. But yeah, it's just one of those crazy things. But I've got a notification here about we've detected copyright audio and video in your stream. Okay, all right, fine. But there you go. That's annoying. But I wanted to show you that clip just to illustrate where kind of this discussion came from, or this discussion idea came from rather. But yeah. So, all right. What do you think, wifey? Can a motorcycle, or can a car rather, ever be as fun as a motorcycle?
As fun? say it could be more fun, but I'm not sure if it could be as fun either. I think it depends on what bike you're riding and what car you're riding as well. Because if you said to me, right, you can get on this Hayabusa, or you can get in this Honda Jazz, it's not going to be much of a competition, is it? So you're going to have something that's more equally matched. So...
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest criticism I have of that Top Gear clip is, the whole idea that, that a 600cc motorcycle can't keep up with perhaps one of the fastest cars ever made.
Yeah.
I mean, well, not one of the fastest cars necessarily in top speed, but one of the fastest cars in 0 to 60, 0 to 100, just because of how lightweight it is.
So I'll pose the question back to you. If you said, right, there's going to be a drag race or a race between the Honda CBR 600RR, but you have to pick an equally matched car, what would you pick?
An equally matched car?
Car that would be fair in the race, so it'd be a real, honest race.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting. In a drag race or in a race like what they had?
Well, let's say a race like that then, just to be...
Race like that on a track?
Yeah, so a track race.
Do you know what? I think this might not be the fairest, but I think a really interesting comparison would be a 600RR versus a Subaru.
Okay.
A four-wheel drive Subaru Impreza. One of those old-fashioned. Well, I say old-fashioned. The classic kind of rally car. Yeah. I think that would be a very, very interesting race, and so I think that would be a good match. Because obviously the Subaru isn't necessarily, the fastest car in the world in a straight line, but it has all that grip, and it's more of a closer match to the Aerial Atom in terms of what it's designed to do. Be quick around the corners, have grip around the corners and stuff like that, and grip accelerating out, things like that. So I think that would be interesting. But it's tough to say exactly what would be a fair match between a motorcycle and a car.
Okay, so let's go back to the question that Jeremy's actually posing here is, so can a car ever be as... Well, our question is, can a car ever be as fun as a bike, isn't it? And Jeremy's obviously asking the inverted question.
Yeah, the other way around, yeah.
But if you had to say yes or no right now, what would your answer be?
Yes.
It can. But
a car can certainly be as fun as a bike, yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Or a bike can certainly be as fast as a car, fun as a car.
Absolutely.
Whichever way you want to go round, they can be as fun as each other.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on the car itself and the bike itself.
And your preference as a motorist.
I think if you had something like a Subaru Impreza, that would be a ridiculously fun car to drive.
Yeah.
Even something like a Ford Focus RS would be extremely fun to drive, especially one of the newer models where it's got the four-wheel drive as well. Mm-hmm. That's certainly something that I would have buckets of fun in, without a doubt. And I could probably honestly say that they would be as fun as riding the ZZR, riding the ZH2. And the ZH2 and the ZZR are slightly different just because you have that sheer, just immediate power. So in straight lines, I would say that one of those two bikes would be more fun. Okay. But in a race, either would be fun for me.
I'm going to ask you a question that's probably a little bit unfair, but I'm going to ask anyway. What is your most favourite car, like your dream car in the entire world? That if money wasn't an object, what would you... And someone said, right, go get this car. What would it be?
That's really tough. That's a really tough question, because as I've through the years, my favourite car has changed.
That's okay.
So
just pick one.
Back in the day, I don't know, between 2000 and 2005, I probably would have said something like a Mitsubishi Evo.
quite right for the time.
Yeah, because of Fast and Furious and all
Yeah.
that, exactly. Also things like Toyota Supras and Celicas as well. They're really fun cars back then, or cars that I liked back then anyway.
But right now, what car is coming to your mind right now?
I'd have to say a Lamborghini Huracan.
Okay, fine. I thought it was going to be a Lambo. And what about bike? Same question on a bike. No holds barred, you can have any bike.
See, that's really tough as well, because I love a lot of bikes.
Right, just pick an answer. We haven't got all night.
All right, okay. I will say the ZZR.
Okay. So if someone says to you, here's your Lambo, here's your ZZR. You're going to ride both of them. You're going to have so much fun. But at the end of it, one of these is going to cease to exist. Okay? Which one would you pick? Obviously, no being a Lambo, but you have the deciding factor that at the end of this race, or the end of this track day you're going to have, one is going to be gone, right? Never to be seen again. That's it. The reason I'm asking is I want you to think, which would you have more fun in? Would you have more fun in the Lambo or more fun on the ZZR?
I would have more fun on the ZZR.
Because
Just because it's a bike that you can actually use and enjoy every day. Something like a Lambo, you're only really going to enjoy that car on a racetrack, really.
Okay.
When you think about it.
You'll never get its full potential otherwise.
Exactly. I mean,
Okay.
and you and to some extent you can say that as well about a bike like a ZZR or a bike like a Hayabusa, where you're never ever going to be able to use it to its full extent on the street. But you can use it more so on the street, I think, than something like a Lambo.
So, are you saying that bikes are more fun than cars, say supercars, because they're more practical on everyday life?
Not more practical, more usable. There's a difference. Usable as in, I can get out any one of my motorcycles and just go out for a ride. Whereas, I mean, I suppose you could do the same thing with a Lambo, but
You can't filter in a Lambo.
you can't filter in a Lambo, and I don't know. That's hard. That's really hard.
It's really funny because after this clip, they go back to the studio and Clarkson starts talking about, because he talks to Hammond, and obviously Hammond, he loves motorbikes, doesn't he? I mean, if anyone's seen the Top Gear where they're
He's a biker,
in Vietnam, isn't it? And they're on the scooters and the
Yes, yeah, well, it was Vietnam.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And the horrible time, I'm going to watch that later, the horrible time that Jeremy's having with his calendar on his head and all that. Clarkson says to Hammond that is more practical because it's got a boot, the Atom. And it's probably got a postage stamp size of a boot. But you can get panniers on a bike, which basically is the same thing.
I don't think, when it comes to this, I don't think practicality is an argument that comes into it, because a motorcycle isn't that practical. A car like an Aero Atom or Lambo is not that practical. Like, you wouldn't go to the shops to get a massive shop in a Lambo, like in the same way you wouldn't go to the shops to do a massive shop on a motorcycle.
No.
You know? So when we're just talking about pure fun factor, that is where it gets really difficult, because like who wouldn't say no to having a Ferrari? Who wouldn't say no to having an Aston Martin? You know,
Who wouldn't say no? Who would say no?
Who wouldn't say no?
So who?
No one would say no if you said, right, you could either have this car or this motorcycle. That would be a hard thing to do. But if you just gave someone an Aston Martin, they wouldn't be like, no, I don't want it. It's not fun.
So who would say no to having it?
Or the opposite question. Who wouldn't say no?
Who wouldn't say no means basically you're saying there's a bunch of people who would say no. Like,
No.
who wouldn't say no to that?
No, that's not the phrase.
You're saying it wrong.
No, I'm not saying it wrong.
Who would say no? That's the phrase.
No, who wouldn't say no?
Oh.
Anyway, doesn't matter. That's a discussion for another time, I suppose.
That's enough
But
line call.
basically, anyway, a lot of people would not say no to having a car like an Aston, a Lambo. By the same token, someone would probably not say no to having a bike like a ZZR, having a bike like a ZH2, having a bike like a Fireblade, having a bike like an R1. There are so many bikes out there that I personally would be like, I would have that. I would certainly have that. You know, and there are loads of these bikes that are on my radar to actually own one day. And I suppose that's another reason why, in a way, a motorcycle can be more fun than a car. It's just they are more available. They're cheaper. So you can buy a stupidly high-performance motorcycle for the price of a luxury sedan car.
I think there's something really important to actually point out here. You're someone who likes cars and bikes. So this is a really difficult discussion.
Yes.
Clarkson hates bikes.
Mm-hmm.
For him, no matter if you gave him the most beautiful, pristine, fabulous, fastest bike in the world, he'd still pick cars.
I think that anyone that's a petrol head is a petrol head for cars and bikes, for anything that has a motor in it, even trains, for God's sake. Right? Seriously. Yeah. If you put Clarkson on that CBR 600RR and let him go around the track, I wonder if they did that. I wonder if they said to him, do you want to have a go on the bike around the track?
I don't think he would have.
I think he would have.
I don't think he would.
I seriously think he would have been like, I am all over that.
I think if you gave it to Hammond, yes.
No.
But I don't think Clarkson.
All three of them would have had a go.
Can you imagine James May on a motorbike?
Yeah, he loves bikes as well.
Does he actually?
Yeah, do you remember when we watched Our Man in Japan? He rode his
Course.
ZZR at
He
1400.
did, yeah. That's another show people need to watch. It's
Yeah,
so
it's a good show.
underrated, and it's not that known about for some reason, but it's such a good show.
Yeah.
So good.
But anyway, I think that a lot of this with Clarkson in particular is just an act. It's just for show.
persona.
Yeah, it's just for show. Like, if you put him on a really nice motorcycle, you put him on a Harley, you put him on like a Hayabusa, you put him on something that's really nice, he'd enjoy it. He'd absolutely enjoy it. Even if he wouldn't own one himself for personal use or what have you, he would still have a load of fun on a 600RR, on a Fireblade, on an R1. He would love it. Seriously.
I'm sorry, I'm not convinced.
You don't need much convincing, though. That's my point. As soon as you sit on a bike like that and you give it a bit of throttle, you have a feel for what's in between your legs. That's it. That's all the convincing you need. What?
Nothing.
Anyway, so if money was no object, you could certainly get a car that was as fun as a motorcycle, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Perhaps more fun. If money was no object, like if you could get an Aero Atom, like that'd be amazing. That'd be such a fun experience. That'd be like mind-blowing experience. But the fact that I can get a mind-blowing experience from a motorcycle that costs less than a Ford Fiesta, brand new, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think all really expensive cars have a real fun factor about them. Like, I don't think I'd be drag racing a Bentley.
But again, those bikes, those cars aren't designed for fun.
No, I'm just saying that it's not always money
But what I'm
orientated.
saying is, that if money was no object, then you could absolutely find a car that you would enjoy, without a doubt.
I'd get a Mustang.
I would get a Mustang. I would certainly get a Mustang.
That would be, I know a digression slightly, that would be one of my top 5 would be a Mustang.
Yeah. There are loads of cars that I would buy. I would have a collection of cars. I would have a collection of bikes if I could afford it. If money was no object.
And we'd need a house to
right.
to have all that in.
I need a showroom.
You'd literally need a basement entrance, a bit like Iron Man's entrance, like where all his cars and stuff are.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what you'd need.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. Anyway, that's that is that. Now, with the notification I got earlier, it said that the live stream may be blocked. I hope that's not the case. It looks like as if you guys are still watching, so that's okay. But yeah, I'll have to have a look after the show and see if this was a success or a complete failure. Because I don't know, YouTube copyrights and things like that are
finicky.
They are very, very finicky and very, very frustrating. Because
Let us know if you can still hear us.
It's not like we're trying to copy Top Gear. It's not like we're trying to do that. We're trying to use that clip as an illustration for what we're talking about.
We're not being malicious.
No,
at all.
Excuse me. It should come under fair use, but we'll see. We shall see. But yeah, I mean, let's try and think about the pinnacle of motorcycles right now. The pinnacle of motorcycles right now, you could probably say, what his face?
He's just staring at me.
Yeah. So the absolute pinnacle of motorcycles, you could argue, is a Ninja H2 or a H2R from Kawasaki. That's a ZX-10R.
Forgot what I brought.
So I know that a lot of people might disagree with that. You know, the ultimate bike can be this, the ultimate bike can be that. But let's just take that as an example. Let's put that up against the ultimate car.
Which is?
Arguably a Bugatti Chiron.
Okay.
Arguably. So both of these vehicles are going to be immensely fun. Both these vehicles are going to give you an experience that you would never have had in your life before. The Bugatti Chiron is the fastest road car in the world at the moment. I think it was recorded doing over 300 miles an hour a few years ago.
Blimmin' heck.
So that's that. The H2R, I can't remember exactly what the top speed of that bike is, but it's well over 200 miles an hour. I think stock it's 220 miles an hour, something like that. And I can't remember the exact specs on horsepower, but it's what is it, close to 300 horsepower on that bike, which is ridiculous for a motorcycle. Absolutely ridiculous for a motorcycle. And the fact that you can buy that from a Kawasaki factory from new. Okay, yes, they're only for track purposes. The H2R, unfortunately, is only a track motorcycle. You can't ride it on the road. I don't know if there's a way that you can make it road legal. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I have no idea. But at least the Bugatti is a car that you can actually drive on the road. So that's one thing to keep in mind there as well. But if we put those two up against one another, which one of those would you pick? It's hard, isn't it?
I don't know. Part of me says the car, but that's my own fear factor coming in. That I'd feel, for some reason, safer going 300 miles an hour in a car than I would a bike.
To be fair, I think if you were doing 300 miles an hour in a car or motorcycle, it would be stupid either way. But so you're saying that if you would do it in anything, it would be in a car.
That's my own fear. That's my own like airbags.
Well, let's not think about top speed though. Let's think about in the kind of experience that you would get. Now, obviously, the experience that you've got extends to a 125cc motorcycle.
That big, I know.
For your personal experience, but obviously you've been on the back of the ZZR. You've been on the back of the ZH2. You've been on the back of the old CBR 600RR that I used to have. Are you sure that you would enjoy yourself more in that car than
if we were talking about like being the driver or rider? That's different to being the pillion.
Yes, it is.
Being a pillion or a passenger, I prefer to be on the bike.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
That's fine.
Well, no, I don't. To be honest, if you ask me that exact same question, I don't know which way I'd go. I would to and fro the whole time.
I think it would depend, wouldn't it? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
I think for one, you might just turn up one day and be like, the car.
Yeah.
And the other day you might be like, no, I want the bike.
Yeah. But that's the thing for me, more often than not. Like, remember, we have a nice car. We have two nice cars.
Yes.
I choose to take a motorcycle as my primary option. Like, unless I'm going somewhere to pick something up or to pick up, to do shopping or pick up multiple people, take them somewhere, bring them home or what have you, take them to the shops, I wouldn't obviously consider a motorcycle. But if it's just me and I need to go somewhere, I need to visit someone, I need to do something that doesn't involve carrying anything or anyone, I will take a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Regardless if I had a Bugatti or not.
Do you know what? Now, I might be wrong, but I'm going to say I'm not. I think even with a low... So even if someone said to you, you've won a prize, you can either buy this R8, or you can either have this R8, or you can have this whatever bike is the top of your dream list right this minute. I still think you'd go for the bike. I think you personally get more thrills out of a bike. I think you feel more freed, and you get that rush and that adrenaline and that freedom, and you really enjoy it. Like, you come in flushed from a ride because you've had such a great time.
But I only get that experience because I can use it on the street.
Yeah, and I think if you had an R8, you wouldn't necessarily feel as though you were getting its full potential, and I think you'd get more frustrated driving it than enjoying it. Say you're going, I don't know, you happen to hit traffic and you're sitting in it. You'd watch a bike go past, you'd be like, I should have picked the bike because I could be. And I think that's you. I think that's why you find bikes more enjoyable.
I agree. When it comes to the streets, when it comes to driving on the roads, a motorcycle will always beat a car for me. But if I had a racetrack in my back garden and I could pick one of two machines, a motorcycle or a car, to drive around the racetrack and have a blast on it, I wouldn't be able to decide between the two.
A different experiences.
If it was just, if I could only do it one time I can go around this racetrack in either this bike or this car, it would be an impossible decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, you could own one of this bike or this car and you can use it every day, it would be the bike all the time.
Yeah.
Every time it would be the bike. But on a racetrack, for just pure adrenaline, pure fun, pure experience, I have no idea.
That's fair.
No idea whatsoever.
And this is the thing, the question that Jeremy poses isn't necessarily about on the road or on a track. He just makes a statement.
Yeah. It's very tough to decide, because like you said, I'm a fan of cars, I'm a fan of bikes. And that's what I was saying to you earlier about Clarkson. You can't be one or the other. Not really. If you're interested in motorsport, it's more than likely you're interested in all different kinds of motors, all different kinds of motorsport.
I would love to see him driving a train, though.
Has he not?
I haven't seen it, but I've not watched every episode of Top Gear.
I would love to see him ride a motorcycle, like a proper motorcycle.
Not like a little scooter
not like
thing.
in Vietnam where he was on a scooter, on a proper job motorcycle. Honestly, that would have been absolute gold if in that clip of Top Gear they filmed him trying to ride that
even
CBR.
Just trying to get on it would have been hilarious, I think.
It would have been amazing. It would have been some of the best TV he would have ever produced.
Random side question. You know Richard Hammond's quite short. He's shorter than me. Do you think he can comfortably get on a bike, can't he? He's
on
not...
almost any, yeah.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, almost any motorcycles, yeah. Yeah, we had a viewer recently who commented on a video saying, he was 5'6", and he was asking whether or not he could ride motorcycles. And literally all of us jumped in and said, yes, of course you can. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I specifically said there are people close to 5 foot that ride motorcycles without a problem.
My mum is 5 foot, and she got on my bike, didn't she?
She's taller than that, isn't she?
No, not anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought she was taller than that.
No.
But, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, height isn't that much of an issue unless you are on the extreme ends of either one. So if you are really small, if you're like 4 foot something, then yeah, you're going to struggle. But at the same time, if you're over 7 foot tall, you might also struggle fitting on most motorcycles. It's
really, and it sounds really silly, but for some reason, and this might be true, I thought the bigger the bike, the higher off the ground it was.
No.
So the other day when I got on your H2, so you could put it on the stand, I sit on it so I can hold the steering bars straight. Handlebars.
Steering bars.
It's an amalgamate. It's fine. Yeah, I was really surprised I could touch the floor because I assumed the bigger it was, the higher off the ground it was.
No, it all depends on the motorcycle itself that you're getting on. So, like, if you're getting on an adventure bike, for example, it doesn't really matter what size it is. they're usually taller. They usually sit taller than, say, a sport bike. A sport bike usually sits closer to the ground. And to some extent, nakeds sit taller as well than sport bikes. So, but honestly, I think people are pleasantly surprised when they sit on a motorcycle and they're worried about their height, because most motorcycles will be designed to fit, you know, the most amount of people possible. And like, what's the average height around the world? You know, could be 5'5", could be 6 foot. I don't know. But they would have been designing most of these motorcycles around that metric, you know, what is, and designing how the pegs are fitted and things like that on as many different heights of people as possible, because they want to get the most amount of sales. So it makes sense that you know, that they
cater to the majority,
cater to as many people as possible on their bikes. And there are certain motorcycles that have adjustable seats, that have adjustable pegs, that have adjustable handlebars. So if you're a little bit taller, if you're a little bit smaller, you can still fit on that very same bike without any modifications. So yeah, it's one of those things that most people don't have to worry about, to be honest. You know.
Yeah.
Was it Eddie Hall that a few years ago bought a cruiser, a massive cruiser? Yeah, I didn't watch his video, but it was entitled something like "My New Toy" or "My Birthday Present" or something like that.
He's a chunky boy, isn't he?
He's a big man.
He's a chunky
very
lad.
big man. I mean, I don't know how tall he is, but I don't think he's that tall. He might be 6 foot, but he is wide. He's a huge man.
He's a unit.
For those of you who don't know, Eddie Hall is an ex-strongman, English strongman, and
I always get him confused with the guy out of Game of Thrones, the Mountain.
Oh, Halfthor, yeah.
Yeah, I always get them confused.
Halfthor Bjornsson.
But they're very similar in the build, aren't they?
No,
they're not.
Halfthor is much bigger.
Okay, so that's not a good reference. So ignore me.
Yeah, he's. I don't know what height he is, but he's at least 7 foot. I think he's massive.
Goodness.
He's Icelandic giant. He's absolutely huge. I mean, that's why they call him the Mountain in Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that. But anyway, yeah, someone like him might struggle finding a motorcycle that fits him. But yeah, it's not a concern for most people. Not really. Most men or women, it's not really a problem. I don't think. But yeah, we've kind of sidetracked a little bit from the topics of today's video.
Pretty interesting, though.
Yeah, it is interesting, and
I mean, you can't stick to this is what we're going to talk about. It's just.
Well, yeah, I try to though.
No, I know, but a bit of deviation is really good.
Yeah. I don't know. Less waffle, isn't it?
I like waffles.
Isn't it, little pug? That's waffle. I think he likes waffles.
He does like waffles.
That's sweet face. But yeah, so let's have a quick look at the chat. We haven't looked at the chat today. Let's have a look here. 125 guy. Hey guys, hope you're both doing well. Glad to catch the live stream. Thank you, 125 guy. Good to see you. Hope you're all doing well as well. Excuse me, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Arjun Sharma. He says, I love H2. So that's pretty good. I do too.
As you've probably seen from the videos.
Bugatti Bolid. How do you pronounce that?
Can't see it. You have to turn it.
Don't know if I can turn it around that much because of the wires. There. See? That's what I was worried about.
I don't know.
I don't recognise that car.
I'm gonna have a little Google.
I don't recognise that car. I do apologise, but he also clarified about the Bugatti Chiron that I said about earlier. 0 to 426 seconds. I'm assuming that is 400 kilometers an hour in 26 seconds. That is
blimey.
Absolutely insane. Wow.
That's a nice car.
Wow.
That's a very nice car.
Let me just find that quickly for you guys.
That is insane.
Because that is a pretty wicked car, I have to say.
And it only costs just over 4.5 million. You've got that line around. You're set. It's nice in green. It's Kawasaki green as well.
Here you go. I'll see if I can bring it up for you guys. Here you go. That's what it is.
That is a nice machine.
That's pretty insane.
It's pretty. You just thought you sent it there.
It is track only hypercar though. That's interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting. But I
but-
do wonder though how ridiculously fast that car
That
is.
does look.
I don't know anything
It
about
doesn't.
the specs. Or anything.
Doesn't look like it
Is
belongs
this
on the
recent?
street.
I've never seen this car before.
Have a look. Look for it in green though. It looks so nice in green.
This car apparently was revealed with 1,825 brake horsepower.
Oh, so
What?
it's not. Apparently, this could be wrong. Apparently, it's not going to be released until. Wait, no. These are contradicting information. So one said it's not going to be released till 2024, but Bugatti have said that of 150 customers who ordered a Bugatti in 2021. 60% were new to the brand. The Chiron and the Bolide are now sold out. But they're going electrified.
Well, there you go. Learned something new. Awesome. Yeah,
Amazing.
thank you for that, Ajahn Sharma. Appreciate that.
Beautiful car.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we look forward to seeing what that car can do.
Yeah.
Dope Style Gaming, good to see you. How you doing? They say missed a little bit, but we had to make it for the stream. Yep, thank you ever so much for making the effort. Really appreciate it. Dope Style Gaming says, I haven't even got my first bike yet, but I feel for me personally, I am unsure if I would ever be able to have as much fun on a car as I have on a bike, even if it was only on a CVT. Yeah, it's funny how motorcycles get you like that, because I had the exact same experience when I turned 17 and I got my full motorcycle license first. It's the very first thing I did. And then when I turned 18, I got my driving license. But even on a crappy 125 Chinese motorcycle, I still had buckets of fun on it. Arguably more fun than I did driving my mum's car when I first got my driving license. Obviously, I couldn't afford to buy my own car back then. So I was driving around my mum's little Renault Clio. And nowhere near as fun. Nowhere near as fun, unfortunately. But yeah, it's
But
it's one of those things that if you start riding really young, it hooks you. It hooks you straight away. So it is one of those hobbies that I think you have to get into early to appreciate as much as you can.
my first car was really fun though. My Peugeot.
Oh, your Peugeot 206.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peugeot 206 Sport.
That was a fun
That
little
was a fun
car.
little
Yeah.
thing. Little go-kart. It sounded meaty, didn't it? That
Yeah.
thing.
Got broken into, didn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, and it didn't feel the same after that, so we didn't keep it after
Yeah.
that, unfortunately.
Yeah, had problems, but it was a good car.
It was grunty.
I enjoyed that car.
It was
fun.
you could throw it into the corners.
Yeah,
How you
it
put
was just a little hatchback that
Yeah.
you could literally just throw around, and it took it quite happily. So yeah, fun little car.
Do miss that car, but like I said, it wasn't the same after it got broken into. So
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because obviously you got your driving license a few years ago.
about 4 years ago, yeah.
About 4 or 5 years ago. Your first experience on a motorcycle compared to driving your first car?
As a pillion or as a rider?
No, as a rider.
Mm.
What did you think when you comparing the two?
I don't know. It's hard for me to recollect. I don't know. I think it's a different sense of freedom. Like you get your license, you're like, I'm free, I can go anywhere I want. But then you get your bike, and it's a different sort of freedom because you're I don't know. You're not stuck in tin.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't have the same experience driving a car for the first time than I did on a motorcycle. I felt so much more excitement and enjoyment from riding a motorcycle, even a scooter. Even the scooter that I had when I was 16, I absolutely loved that thing. It got stolen. Got stolen when I was 17. So there you go. And that's actually what prompted me to get a motorcycle after that. But yeah, I loved it. Those experiences I had, I don't remember the very first time I got in a car and drove it myself, but I very much remember the first time I got on a motorcycle. and rode that for the first time, and
Yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's one of those experiences that just kind of like, it's like, what's the word? Ingrained in your memory for me, anyway.
I remember the first time I was a pillion though. My dad had a Suzuki GSX 750, like really old one. He had it for years and years and years. And he said, "Oh, do you want to come out for a ride? I'll just take you around the block." So you knew where I grew up. So I was like, "Hey, round the block, fine." He's like, "We're going to go get some fuel." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. It's just down the road." And he's like, "Okay, on the way home, we're going to go a longer way." And I thought, "Okay, wonder how." Down the bypass, my dad takes me. So I'm sitting on the bike. No, I'm 19. I hadn't been on a bike before, and he could feel me slipping. And he said to me after, he said, "I just had to hold onto your hand." And he said, "I could feel you slipping," and that's ingrained on my head because it was just such a. I wasn't expecting to go down the bypass, so.
Have you seen the pug?
Yeah.
He knows what he is.
Yeah.
And if you say pug, he responds.
Or his ears go. You might see his ears moving, or his eyes go. He's an integral part of the family.
Such a sweetie, isn't he? Anyway, guys and gals, thank you ever so much for tuning into today's show and throwing your comments in the chat. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, it's good to hear from all of you lot. And yeah, like I said earlier, hope you're all doing well, and hope you're all keeping well. But yeah, I think that'll do for today's show. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, to be honest. So I hope that all of you caught my little speech on the Ukraine situation, because it was quite heartfelt. So yeah, certainly go ahead and share that if you want to. You know, kind of show our support for Ukraine. And yeah, I think that's everything. I think that's all I got to say for today.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you have any closing remarks, wifey?
I've had a really long week, so my brain is quite empty right now. But yeah, just keep, liking, sharing, commenting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And come and talk to us when we're talking at each other.
Yep.
And at you guys. So,
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you very much, guys and gals. We will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
He's like, "What are you doing?" There's a little fly that keeps flying across.
Yeah,
but it's like